This is Garis, Masculist, MGTOW flyers. That is 2 3-page essays on the themes of masculism and MGTOW, written by and read aloud by Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. This is flyer number 307, entitled Compulsory Calculus for all 16-year-old Soviet Russians, female and male. Lessons for Masculists. Description. This flyer sees the fact that in the Soviet Russian era, the study of calculus was compulsory for all 16-year-olds, both male and female, as a powerful historical and realistic precedent for the Masculists, who can use this fact when pushing for the creation of a FIP society. The flyer itself, usual, making it larger. Compulsory calculus for all 16-year-old Soviet Russians, female and male. Lessons for Masculists by Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. Email profhugodegaris@yahoo.com. Website profhugodegaris.wordpress.com. After nearly 4 months living in my new, actually old, country Australia, where I grew up, after having lived half a century in 6 other countries, I now have a female friend/companion whom I tway-twef with, who is Russian. Tway-twef equals 2A2F equals 2 apartments, 2 FIPs, that's financially independent persons. Tway-tweffing allows the man to get regular female companionship without paying the traditional price of being a manslave to a fluffy female. Fluffy equals a masculist term for a traditional woman who expects to be able to parasite off the money of a man, the enemy of the masculists, who aim to wipe them out by ignoring them to death, not even pumping and dumping them, forcing them to FIP up or to rot on the shelf. Fortunately for me, my Russian female companion has the same desire to tway-twef as I do, but for different reasons. She simply prefers to have her own space, not to have a man around whose full-time, retired presence would just cramp her style. That's fine by me. Of course, I have my masculist reasons for not wanting a live-in wifey, so we agree on that score. As I get to know this woman better, who got into a prestigious university in Russia and has authored a string of books, she surprises me with facts about her life in Russia, where she lived for nearly half a century before migrating to Australia to avoid risking her son being butchered in the Chechen War. She told me that in today's Russia, feminism is not a thing. That is, it has no stronghold on Russian culture, and that male stand-up comedians in Russia regularly poke fun at the hypocrisies of the feminists. However, her real bombshell for me was when she told me that all 16-year-olds, male and female, were obliged to study calculus at high school. That is, the study of calculus was compulsory for all 16-year-olds in Soviet Russia when she was a girl. This little factoid galvanized me because it made the Western masculist idea of making calculus compulsory for 16-year-olds in the West realistic, rather than just a vague maybe. The fact that Soviet 16-year-olds of both sexes were obliged to study calculus gives teeth to the Western masculist idea to do the same. The Russian-Soviet case is a concrete and powerful precedent that is time-tested and hence realistic. Masculists place tremendous importance on the creation of a FIP society, that is, in which both sexes are raised by parents and taught by teachers in primary and secondary schools to FIP up, that is, to become FIPs. Otherwise, they'll become fluffies and hence face a serious risk of not being able to attract the attention of a man who's prepared to marry her and have a baby with her. The Masculists are very aware that so many of the STEM, that's science, tech, engineering and math, and the professions, medicine, law, dentistry, architecture, etc., would be closed to women at university if they failed to study math and sciences at high school. Hence the Masculists are pushing for the compulsory teaching of calculus and at least one science for all Western 12th grade high schools, so that they are not excluded from studying STEM fields and the professions at university. The compulsory study of calculus and the sciences at high school in the USSR must have had real Masculist implications. A young woman in the USSR who had math and science at high school would have been encouraged to study a similar field at university that would be useful to the USSR, that is, to the creation of a technologically advanced Soviet state, according to Soviet politicians and ideologues. Similar logic applies to Western Masculists. A young woman in the West who had math and science at high school is encouraged to study a career-competent field at university that would be useful to men, that is, to the creation of a FIP Society, so beloved by the Masculists, that is, to the creation of a men-fair society, according to Masculist politicians and ideologues. In many Western countries today, a quarter of fathers get financially massacred and have their lives ruined by the hated fluffy feminist hypocrisy in the divorce courts, losing his kids with a 90% probability, losing his house to his fluffy ex-wife, half his stuff to her, forced to pay child support for kids he will barely see, and often alimony to his ex, so that she can remain a fluffy parasite of him for the rest of her life. This massive gender injustice against men enrages Masculists and fills them full of hatred for fluffy feminist hypocrites who don't bother to FIP up and expect men to pay for them after the divorce, as he did before the divorce. Masculists aim to wipe out fluffies by forcing them to rot on the shelf, to extinction, seen by Masculists and female Masculists as immoral, parasitic, man-slaving vermin to be exterminated. To do this, Masculist theorists reason that young women need to be socialized by parents and taught by teachers to become FIPs. And to ensure that that happens, the Masculists are pushing for the creation of compulsory study of calculus and a science at high school for all 12th grade high schools, so that they are not excluded from studying a career-competent major at university. Only about a quarter of them, if that, study calculus and the sciences at 12th grade in the US. So it's not surprising that the majority of female students in Western universities are labelled by the Masculists as fluffy crappers, because they study fluffy crap at university, because they studied fluffy crap at high school. By making calculus and the sciences compulsory at 12th grade Western high schools, the proportion of fluffy crappers in Western countries will go down significantly. Masculist moral pressure will force young women to think twice about becoming fluffy crappers through fear of not being able to attract a man who will help pay for her to have a baby. The Masculists can increase this fear by making the Masculist slogan, "No calculus, no baby," well known in Western cultures. Now, to come to the punchline of this flyer. When the fluffy feminists, that is the feminazis, complain that making calculus and the sciences compulsory for young women is just more patriarchal tyranny, then the Masculists can retaliate by saying that the USSR did it, and as a result pulled itself out of being a backward third world nation to a superpower in a mere few decades. The fact that calculus was compulsory for all 16-year-old USSR high school students, both male and female, serves as a concrete and powerful precedent for the Masculists. Masculist theorists can use this fact with great effect. Mascs can claim, quote, "The idea of compulsory calculus for all 12th graders is no pipe dream, because it has already been done in the USSR, and to great effect. As a result, a higher proportion of the Soviet population were able to become highly productive scientists and engineers, so vital for the modernization of the USSR, pulling it out of poverty." Similarly, the Masculists can claim that compulsory calculus and the sciences at 12th grade Western high schools will allow a much higher proportion of women to become true FIPs and not to expect fluffy style to parasite off the money of a man and hence become a hated man-slaving parasite in the eyes of Masculist male colleagues and hence be rejected by them. Masculists see the compulsory study of calculus as a vital tool, a vital stepping stone towards the creation of a FIP society, so can use the USSR compulsory calculus decision as a concrete historical precedent that the Masculist politicians can trumpet. When my Russian companion mentioned her compulsory calculus study in the USSR, all the above flashed through my mind. I was blown away by its profound implications and precedential power for the Masculist movement. Cheers. Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. Prof. Hugo de Garis at yahoo.com. Website profhugodegaris.wordpress.com, which contains a link to my book entitled Masculism, Men's Rebellion Against Being Manslaves to Women, an e-textbook of 300 plus Masculist flyers for men's studies courses. Ciao.